his best when he always seems to be what's what. With Patrick Keys, brings the free card. He once shot a man right in his head. But was to mess with the American MIT. He's the man we call B-A-B-I-P. He's past gold and his tongue is quick. He's the man to break it down with sabermetrics. The writers are scared. The debate is too. Patrick D chops him up just like chicken stew. Tony C for the best and 1,000 shows. He quickly became one of their players. You don't want to accept when you see the first class. Tony C is more famous than the Hokey Dance. So there it is. We're keeping it real. We remember premium time is such a skill. We stretch lots of things at the 911, but remember to have lots of fun.
Hey, having it 3 out, 20 more minutes right here on Talking Baseball Live. I'm Paul Greco from FantasyPros911.com. My partner, Mr. Lenny Malik, is on drunk assignment tonight. He'll be back next week as we break it down, giving you the best information prior to your September 1st calls. We'll have all the best information, getting you guys ready to take you down the home stretch as we produce the most winners in fantasy baseball this year. We appreciate you guys checking out the show. Starting to get to some of the hot topics we've been talking about, playoffs and different players making moves, who's next, rookies. But the real topic right now has to be the reemergence of Josh Hamilton. We started to talk a little bit about the reemergence of Josh Hamilton last week on the show, and what's been interesting is if you take a look at the numbers, Josh Hamilton batted .205 in July with 1 home run and 5 RBI. Now since then, Hamilton's starting to light it up. Now the power numbers aren't there from a home runs perspective, but he is batting .397 with 12 RBI. And it's almost as if the picture situation of him falling off the wagon kind of lit a fire under his ass. I mean, this is a guy that's been dominant since, been hitting the ball hard to all fields. And right now it's going to be the Josh Hamilton show along with Ian Kinsler and Marlon Byrd as his team continues to make its run towards the playoffs. Now, tonight the Boston Red Sox are already leading the Toronto Blue Jays. And again, this is going to be the two teams really to watch. I mean, the NL and AL playoff runs, especially in the wild card, are going to be the most interesting coming down the stretch. I don't think it's going to be, let me retract that. I think it's going to be more interesting with this run than it will be when we watch the playoff games into October. I really do, because once you get into those games, I think the excitement, I think the adrenaline around Major League Baseball starts to teeter off. And although those teams that make it are going to be psyched, I just feel like right now, as we go towards and make these playoff runs, this is the time that Major League Baseball thrives. I think if you take a look at the numbers around Major League ballparks, you see the numbers are up, especially in the month of September. Jason Bay just hits a 2-run homer, puts the Boston Red Sox up 5-1. That's your in-game action right now off of Roy Halladay, who is getting shellacked. Getting back to my point, it becomes very interesting, even with teams that are out, because the teams that are out of the playoffs still have the ability to play spoilers. You take a look at the Florida Marlins the last 2 years against the New York Mets. No one in Florida gave a damn about their team. Nobody. But they sure as hell were cheering as hell and as loud as they could when the Mets came into town 2 years ago, and when they took it to the Mets at Shea Stadium to close out the stadium just a year ago. So my point is this. The wild card and up to the end of the season is a more exciting time in Major League Baseball than the actual playoffs themselves, except, of course, for those fans whose teams are actually in the playoffs. I love this time of year. Football starting, the playoff run, basketball, hockey all getting ready to start. And this is why it's so exciting to be a sports fan, especially nowadays. But getting back to Josh Hamilton and these Texas Rangers again, Josh Hamilton has finally started to catch on fire and is finally making fantasy owners feel a little bit better about themselves. And I like the question that Firefly puts up, and I'm assuming that this is a question for next year because both these two guys were drafted in the first round of many fantasy baseball drafts this year, and that's the argument of who would you rather have on your fantasy team, Josh Hamilton or Grady Sizemore of the Cleveland Indians? I think that's a great topic. I love the debates you guys are having in there in the chat room because it brings up an interesting point. When you take a look at these two guys, and let's be honest, the season that they had this year has been horrible for both of these guys. We're finally starting to see Hamilton catch on, but for first round value, there is no way in hell that these guys are even close. These guys, if you have them on your team and you somehow miraculously built a huge, great lineup after the first round, I'm imagining that most of you guys that actually had these guys on your team are either in third place or below. I'm guessing. I'm just throwing it out there. I'm sure some of the guys in the chat room, you guys are smart enough. Some of you guys might be in the lead with these guys on your roster. But, again, we talked about this in the beginning of the season. Well, the players in the first round most likely will not help you win your fantasy drafts. They sure as hell can lose it for you. Because if you take that one guy and he bombs for you, a la Jose Reyes, Grady Sizemore, Hamilton, Jimmy Rollins, all these guys went in the first round of this year's draft, and I can almost damn guarantee you, if you had those guys on your team, I would say 8 out of 10 that I would survey, if they chose those guys in the first round, they're either in third place or below. You guys in the channel, if you guys have these on the team, let me know. I definitely want to see them. Don't be posting no lines up here. I definitely want to see it because when you take a look again, these guys will lose the leagues for you if they go down. I mean, it's because you're counting on them so much. When you sit down and you're writing down their numbers, you're thinking, these guys are going to be fantastical for me. I'm going to take the championship right off the bat. Jose Reyes is going to get me 60 steals, almost 20 home runs. And bam, just like that, gone. How do you make those up? Because there's not a damn guy on the waiver wire that's going to get you those type of numbers. There's no way in hell that you're going to get a guy that's going to post up Jose Reyes type numbers. I mean, it's just one of those things. It's very, very hard to make up those numbers. Now, if you get a guy in the fourth round and you're projecting numbers on him, and he's a guy that's going to get you maybe 20 home runs, 70 RBI, that guy right there, to me, is a better player to get off the waiver wire than someone that you're expecting to do first-round type numbers, a Jimmy Rollins, a Grady Sizemore, a Josh Hamilton, especially after the year he was coming off of. Again, the hardest thing to do in fantasy sports, the hardest thing is to project injuries. Now, we try. There are guys that are within this fantasy baseball industry that proclaim that they are the expert in the field of projecting injuries. But let's be honest, how can you, unless the guy's coming off an injury from the previous season and is showing lingering effects from the reports that are coming out through the offseason, how can you project that these guys are going to go down? It's nearly impossible. You can go on track record and say, this guy hasn't played in yada number of games like I did for Milton Bradley. That was probably the hardest thing that I had to do at Tout Wars this year, is to convince Lenny Melnick not to go with Milton Bradley, because